Well, hello again. So this morning we are going to dive into part 2 of our mini-series on Gifted. I know last week we kind of missed that week. I had a sore throat and didn't want to come share that with you guys. So now we jump into part 2 this week, discovering your gifts. So senior year in high school is a pretty big year in a person's life. It's a pretty big transition time. Do we have any seniors in here? Any seniors? I know we got one. Any others? No? Okay. All right, Braden, this message is just for you. No, just kidding. This is for everyone. But usually, this senior year in high school is a time when a person starts to ask the question, what do I want to do with my life? What am I going to do for a living, or what do I want to pursue? What are my passions? What are my talents? Sometimes people know exactly what they want to do. Like they're graduating high school, they're like, I want to be a doctor, or I know I want to be an astronomer, or whatever. They know what they want to do, but most people, I would say, don't quite know exactly what they want to do at that stage. And so there are really mainly two options a person can go. Option number one, they can begin working a trade. They can begin training under a carpenter or a plumber, or they can go be a barista at Starbucks and start getting some job experience. They can go be a sandwich artist at Subway. There's lots of different options for what a person can do in terms of starting a trade and starting just going get experience out in the world. So that's one thing they can do. Option two is they could go to college and learn more about a certain area, or get a certain degree if they're interested in something. The problem with that one is you don't usually know what you want to do, and so you'll start with generals and sort of wade your way in. And actually lots of people go to college and they switch degrees halfway through. That's what I did when I was in seminary. I thought I was going to maybe be a Bible translator or something, so I kind of went for biblical languages, and then God steered me more in the direction of pastoral ministry. So lots of people will get multiple degrees at once, which is fine, as long as you're not this guy. So this guy, his name is V.N. Parthabon, and he holds the record for the most degrees. Can you guys guess how many degrees he has? Any guesses? 300? Ooh, that's a little bit high. But actually not too far off. He has 145 degrees. Take a look at this list. That is a very impressive list, huh? Most of which are master's degrees, which is really hard too. So man, I do not envy that guy. But he's been going to classes in school for probably over 50 years, I think. And he's a professor now, which is fitting, I suppose. He's got all that knowledge to share. So you could go to college and get a degree or a couple different degrees. That's another option, seniors in high school, of what you could do. Or sometimes it's a combination of the two. You might go work at a trade for a while and then want to go to school to get more study in that certain area. Or you might start studying a certain area and then begin training in that after you get a degree. Either way, I would argue both approaches are valuable for any high school senior, or anyone really, who's trying to figure out what they would like to do with their life, or what their gifts are, what their purpose is here on this earth, how best they can use their talents to contribute to society. Well, lately we've been talking about spiritual gifts as we've been walking through the book of 1 Corinthians here. And 2 weeks ago we had an introduction to the gifts. So let's review again our definition of what spiritual gifts are. If you grab your insert here, I'll have it on there. If you don't have one, feel free to pop up and grab a bulletin. There should be some in the back for you. And I've grabbed this out of this guy named Peter Wagner. He wrote a book called Your Spiritual Gifts Can Help Your Church Grow. So I pulled this definition out of there, and I thought it was very good. The definition says, a spiritual gift is a special attribute given by the Holy Spirit to every member of the body of Christ, according to God's grace, for us to use, or for use within the context of the body or the church. Okay, so last week we had an introduction to that, and this week we're going to talk about how to discover your spiritual gifts so that you can use them for God's glory. And what we're going to see is that similar to discovering your natural talents, to discovering what your purposes for a job might be in the real world, spiritual gifts involve both learning about your gifts as well as practicing them too. So how do you discover your spiritual gifts? Let's start with step 1 on your outlines. Step 1 is examine your heart. Examine your heart. And these steps aren't necessarily in a strict order there. You can do some at certain points and come back around and do them. They're not necessarily in order, but I think this is a helpful order for us. So first, we need to examine our heart. And the first bullet point says, are you fully submitted to Christ? Are you fully submitted to Christ? The very interesting thing is we aren't commanded anywhere in Scripture to go out and discover our gifts. Paul doesn't say to the churches, all right, now you need to go discover what your gifts are. There's really not any place that he says that, which is interesting. But one thing that he does command us to do, he does command us to be filled with the Spirit. Look at this passage out of Ephesians 5:17 through 19. Paul says, therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk on wine, that's an example of being foolish, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. Sing and make music from your heart to the Lord. Okay, so being foolish, one example of that is getting drunk, filling oneself up with much alcohol. And we could expand that to say anything that you're filling up yourself with in your life, you're trying to fill yourself up with something else, your job, hobbies, anything like that would be seen as a foolish pursuit, as opposed to what is the will of the Lord? The Lord's will is for you to be filled with His Spirit, to be filled with the Holy Spirit. And the interesting thing is this verb, be filled, it's not an active verb. It's not something that we can actively do on our own initiative, but rather it's a passive verb, be filled with the Spirit. There's got to be an outside agent that's the one filling us with His Spirit. So does that leave us off the hook? No, we still have a responsibility in that too. And look at his example in this passage. A lot of people say this is the means by doing it. Verse 19, by speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, songs from the Spirit. Sing and make music from your heart to the Lord. So one of the ways that we can be filled with the Spirit is through worship. It's through offering ourselves to God and saying, God, I love you, I worship you. Fill me with your Spirit. It's providing that space to invite God into filling you more and more with the power of His Spirit. So one of the ways that happens is through corporate worship. Another way is through corporate prayer. Another way we can submit to Him is through corporate prayer. Look at Acts chapter 4, verses 29 through 31. So this is in the middle of the early church. They're just starting out, and they're being persecuted by the religious leaders of Israel. They're being persecuted for being some sect of Israel that they don't like because it goes against what they think and believe. And so these Christians are being persecuted, and so they go to the Lord in prayer. In verse 29, they say, now, Lord, consider their threats and enable your servants to speak your word with great boldness. Stretch out your hand to heal and perform signs and wonders through the name of your holy servant Jesus. And after they prayed, the place they were meeting was shaken, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and spoke the word of God boldly. So they submitted themselves to the Lord, saying, Lord, we need you. We need your help. We need your Spirit to fill us, to do the work that you've called us to do, to be able to speak with boldness, to be able to share the gospel. We need you. So they invited him in to come, and he filled them. Very interesting. So, are you fully submitted to Christ? Are you fully submitted to seeking his will for your life, seeking to be filled with the Spirit? Or are you trying to fill yourself up with other things, with other worldly pursuits or hobbies or your job? Okay, the next bullet point in examining our heart is there any selfish motivation in your heart? Is there any selfish motivation in your heart? This was an issue at Corinth, right? We've seen this. They were seeking after these kind of more flashy gifts for their own sake, for their own glory, so that they could boast about it, and so they could be some special Christians because they had these special gifts, right? They had a selfish motive. Look at Acts chapter 8 with me. This is a story of this guy named Simon who was a sorcerer. He was a magician. He was performing signs in front of the people. He was doing amazing things that people were just marveling at. How is he doing this? How is he performing these things? He had a great following, and he boasted that he was so great. He loved the attention he could get by performing his tricks and magic and whatever. But then something happened. He heard the gospel, and he believed. And so he heard the gospel from Peter and Philip and John, and he heard it and he believed. And then look at verse 18 with me. It says, when Simon saw that the Spirit was given at the laying on of the apostles' hands, he offered them money. So he saw the apostles praying over people and they were being filled with the Spirit. And he offered them money and said, give me also this ability so that everyone on whom I lay my hands may receive the Holy Spirit. Peter answered him, may your money perish with you, because you thought you could buy the gift of God with money. You have no part or share in this ministry, because your heart is not right before God. Repent of this wickedness and pray to the Lord in the hope that he may forgive you for having such a thought in your heart. For I see that you are full of bitterness and captive to sin. So he had a selfish motive in receiving gifts from the Spirit. Right? He wanted to do it to continue his business, to continue getting the glory for himself. He had a selfish motive. So make sure there's not a selfish motivation in your heart. Make sure that as you're seeking the Lord, seeking to be filled with the Spirit, seeking to receive gifts from the Spirit, that you're not doing it for selfish gain. Next bullet point. Are you excited and eager to use your gift with joy for God's glory? When you think about using your gifts for the Lord, are you excited about it? Does that thought bring joy to you? Are you eager to get started using your gift for God's glory? Or are you maybe dreading it? Maybe you're sitting there thinking, man, I don't got time to serve, or I don't know if I want to do that, because then I'll have some obligation now. Are you excited and eager, or are you dreading it? Look at 1 Peter chapter 4 with me, another passage talking about gifts of the Spirit. Notice the different words that he uses to describe the heart behind a person using their gifts. In verse 8, he says, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you've received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, talking about the more speaking gifts of the Spirit, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, talking about the more service-oriented gifts, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. So it's very interesting. In verse 8, he says, above all, love each other deeply. Some translations translate that word deeply as eagerly. It's this eager desire, this deep desire to love one another. And the way that he describes that kind of love in this context is through using your gifts. This is one way you can eagerly love one another. And notice also what he says in verse 9. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Okay, what's the opposite of grumbling? Being cheerful, doing something with a cheerful heart, with good motives. Right? And again, he ends the passage with saying it's all for God's glory. Use your gifts, but only for God's glory, not for your own benefit. So are you excited and eager to serve your brothers and sisters by using your gifts? Are you doing it with joy, with cheerfulness? Or are you doing it with grumbling? So step one is to examine your heart. I think that's a really great place for us to start. We got to have the right heart posture before we can truly discover and use our gifts. Step two this morning. Step two is explore the possibilities. Explore the possibilities. So, first bullet point, prayerfully study through the 4 main gifts passages. So in the New Testament, we find kind of 4 main passages where we have a few different lists of different gifts of the Spirit. And what we've noticed in studying these passages is I don't think these are exhaustive lists because some gifts are used in some passages and not in others. I think what Paul and the other authors are doing in these passages is just kind of throwing a grab bag of examples out there. Hey, use these gifts. These are good gifts. They're just kind of an example for that particular instance, whatever that passage is talking about. So study through these passages. This is a great starting point. Here are lists of a bunch of gifts, and there could be more than that. But it's a good starting point for you. So read through these passages. Pray through them. Ask the Spirit to reveal to you, hey, do I have any of these gifts? Are any of these ones that you want me to be using for your sake, Lord? So pray through them. Next bullet point is to take the modified Houts questionnaire. Okay, so this is like a survey questionnaire sort of thing that I found online. I thought it was pretty good. There's a bunch of them out there, but I think this one's pretty good. So basically what this is there's 125 statements or questions, and so you read it and you mark whether this applies, if this is true to your life. You say, yeah, this is very true, much, sometimes true, this is little true, or not at all. And so you give like a rating of 1 through 4. And then after you answer all the questions, you add up your totals under each category. It'll match the certain questions with a certain gift. And then that'll kind of give you an idea of some of the gifts that you might be more strong in, some more gifts that maybe you do have. Again, this isn't a perfect formula. This isn't a perfect survey. I think it's just a good starting point, and it's not the end of the matter. Your results aren't going to be final in this. You might have other gifts that aren't listed on this questionnaire. But it's a good tool to start. It's a good way to kind of give you a firm grounding of, hey, here's 3 gifts that I scored strong in. Let me explore those. Let me begin looking at using those ones. And what I also like about this questionnaire is at the end of it, there's some good definitions on each of the gifts, as well as different scripture passages that the gift might be found in, or you can see a Christian using that particular gift. So it's a really great tool, I think. And we do have some of them in the back. I printed off a bunch of them, so make sure you guys grab on your way out, or you can download it off our church website. There should be a button on the media page where you can download it. Or you could just Google Modified Houts Questionnaire, and you should be able to find it. But ideally, I'd love for everyone to go through this and pray through it as you go through it. Seek the Lord in it. There are a few caveats with it, though, however. So they do have things like prophecy in tongues and that sort of thing, which is debatable in the church, whether it's still used, not used, so on and so forth. And like we've kind of discussed in the last few weeks or so here, we're open but cautious to some of these more miraculous gifts. So just kind of keep that in mind. There are, of course, false giftings and whatnot. So we just want to be careful when exploring those sorts of gifts. And there's a gift in there called apostle. We would see that as a lowercase apostle. This could kind of be seen more as like a church planner type person who's overseeing different congregations. We wouldn't hold this gift on the same level as the New Testament apostles, capital A, who saw the risen Lord and kind of had more authority in that sort of a sense. So just keep those sorts of things in mind. And these gifts aren't entirely specific either. These are just kind of broad categories. So, for example, a person could have the gift of teaching. They might be gifted in teaching children, but not adults. Or they might be gifted in teaching in a larger group, but not one-on-one. Or a person might be gifted in teaching one-on-one, but not in a larger group. So these are just kind of broad, general categories. And specifically how you use these gifts is going to look different based on your personality, based on how the Spirit has gifted you. And so yeah, just keep those things in mind as well. All right, so step number 3. So once you've examined your heart and explored the possibilities, step number 3 is to experiment with as many gifts as you can. Experiment with as many gifts as you can. So the first bullet point there, figuring out which gifts you don't have can be equally important. It can be as equally important as figuring out which gifts you do have. And so this is why it's good to experiment with your gifts and put them into practice to see, do I have this gift or maybe I don't have this gift? A really great place where you can experiment with your gifts, I would argue, is in a community group. So here at the church, we have a handful of community groups, smaller groups of people gathering together to study God's Word together, to share life together. It's a great place. You can practice gifts of hospitality. You could practice teaching. You could practice leadership in this group. You could practice intercessory prayer or providing mercy and compassion to your brothers and sisters when they're in times of need. These are all different gifts of the Spirit that you can practice in this sort of a smaller group. So I would encourage you, if you're not in a community group, we'd love for you to join one or start one if you want to lead one. Just come talk to me. I think that would be a great place for you to be able to practice and begin using and experimenting with these gifts. Next bullet point is looking for needs within the church that you could possibly fill. Okay, look for needs within the church that you could possibly fill. Maybe there's a gap in some ministry that your gifting would fit perfectly. Next week, we are going to do something that we did a few years ago. We're going to have what's called a ministry fair. How many of you guys remember when we did that a few years back? Yeah? Handful of you. So basically, a ministry fair, we're going to have as many of the ministries in our church that are going on will be set up out in the lobby with different tables for ministry. And they'll just have a list of different ways you could volunteer in that ministry, use your gifts to serve. They'll be there to answer any questions you might have about it. So this is a great opportunity for you to explore some of the needs that might be in our congregation. Okay, so I would encourage you guys to stick around next Sunday after the service, just for 10, 15 minutes. We'll walk around and explore. What are some ministries? Maybe you're already serving in ministries and got too much on your plate. Don't worry about it. But if you haven't gotten plugged in yet or haven't begun using your gifts to serve, this is a great place to explore that. Maybe it's joining us for VBS. We'll have a table and sign up for VBS. You can serve there. Maybe it's making meals for people. We have a group in our church called Meal Makers who sign up to make meals for people that have babies or people that are going through a tough time in life or sick or whatnot, that they make meals for people. This is a great way to use a gift of service to serve the body and build each other up. So look for needs that you could possibly fill. Maybe there's a ministry in the church that's lacking. Maybe you're like, why don't we have this ministry? I would really love to do this. That'd be a great place for you to use your gift in a new ministry. I think an area we could grow as a church is in outreach. I feel like it would be good for us to have some more outreach ministries as a church. So if that's your gifting, if you're gifted in evangelism, come talk to me. I'd love to talk about what that would look like. I'm also going to have a spot at the ministry fair where you can come talk to me. You can sign up for a time to come meet with me during the week or some other time. If you're not really sure what your gifts are, or if you want to explore, you say, I have this gift, but I'm not really sure where can I use it. I'd love to explore and brainstorm with you on where and how you could use your gifts. So come sign up and spend some time with me. I'd love to talk with you about it. All right, so experimenting with the possibilities, experimenting with your gifts. So step 4, evaluate your feelings and effectiveness. Evaluate your feelings and effectiveness. So first bullet point there. How does using a certain gift make you feel? How does it make you feel while you're using this gift? Are you enjoying serving in that way? I think there's a misnomer in the church that serving God is going to be unpleasant. Like he's going to ask us to do something we don't want to do. He's going to force us into serving in a way that we don't want to serve. And there may be times for a short-term filling in a need that you might not particularly enjoy it, but there's a need there. There's times for short-term filling in those needs. But I think in the long run, when you're using your gifts that God's given you, you should enjoy it. You should feel good about it. It should be something you're looking forward to doing. It should be something that really connects you closer to God. So how does using a certain gift make you feel? Evaluate that. The next bullet point, what are the outcomes after you use that gift? What are the outcomes after you use that gift? So if you're experimenting with a gift and you find out that it's supposed to accomplish something, but it's not really accomplishing that goal, or at least not on a regular basis, maybe you don't have that gift. Of course, there are times when you're going to serve and use a gift and it's not going to produce fruit. But in general, if you're practicing a gift and say you're practicing teaching and week after week people are just coming away like, I just don't understand what you're saying, Matt, like, come on, what are you talking about? I don't get it. If there's no fruit being brought there, maybe you don't have that gift. There's an example in this book I'll read for you guys. So this guy, Peter Wagner, he talks about how he was going to be a missionary in Bolivia. This is back in 1956. He says, I did not know much about spiritual gifts. However, I did know what I wanted to be. Those were the days when Billy Graham had just moved into orbit. He became the hero of many seminary students, including me. I marveled at the way he would preach to a stadium full of people, deliver a simple Bible message, give an invitation, and see people get up all over the place, fill the aisles, and pour down the front to make a decision for Christ. That was for me. My friends and I would imitate Billy Graham's gestures in our preaching classes. We would try to preach imitating a North Carolina accent. We learned to articulate, the Bible says, and have appropriate sparks of fire in our eyes. By the time I was ready to go to the mission field, I had it all figured out. Billy Graham could have America, I would take Bolivia. In my mind, I could see thousands and thousands of Bolivians finding Christ through my messages. I had to spend some time learning Spanish, of course, but when I did, I was ready to begin. I prepared a beautiful sermon in Spanish and used all the homiletical skills, the preaching skills, I had learned in seminary. I thought the sermon also had one or two things in it that Billy Graham himself might not have thought of. Then I preached the sermon with all my heart and gave the invitation. Nobody came. Disappointed and somewhat dejected, I tried to figure out what happened. Perhaps it had to do with prayer. Even at best, I've never been a great prayer warrior, but with all the effort it took me to prepare the sermon that time, I had to admit I had hardly prayed at all. So I prepared another sermon using symmetrical design and sound doctrine. But this time I prayed intensely before I went into the pulpit. The results were the same. People acted as if they were permanently glued to their seats. I then thought something in my life must be blocking my relationship with the Lord. The consecration theology I was taught had programmed me to feel that I must not be properly presenting my body as a living sacrifice. For if I were doing that, God certainly would bless my evangelistic ministry. My thoughts went back to seminary again. I recalled a professor of personal evangelism who used to keep our class spellbound by telling stories of how God had used him to win others to Christ. He would tell of how he would get on a bus, sit next to a total stranger, and by the time they got off the bus, the stranger would have accepted Christ. I was impressed. So I got on a bus, took a seat next to a total stranger, and by the time we got off the bus, he was mad at me. I was devastated. For months and years during that first term in ministry as a missionary, I went through experience after experience like that. I wanted to be Bolivia's Billy Graham, but something was preventing me from doing it. And he goes on to describe how he figured out he just didn't have the gift of evangelism. That wasn't what God has gifted him in. So there's examples like that. We need to evaluate our effectiveness in using a gift. Maybe you think you have the gift of mercy and you're trying to practice mercy and compassion on people, and people just get frustrated, like, quit telling me things, I don't want to hear that. Or maybe you don't have that gift. Look at a different area. Try to focus on maybe trying another gift, okay? So as you explore your gifts and experiment with using them, try to evaluate your feelings and effectiveness. Again, not 100% of the time you're going to be effective, but I think if the overall trend is ineffective, you might want to reevaluate what your giftings might be. Okay, step 5 this morning is expect confirmation from the body. Expect confirmation from the body. So look, these gifts are designed for use in the context of the body, of the church. Therefore, other members in the church should have an important voice in confirmation of your gifts. So if you're not sure if experimenting with your gift is effective or not, ask a trusted brother or sister in Christ. Say, hey, I think I have this gift. Am I crazy? Do I have it or not? And they'll be able to tell you, well, you might want to focus on this gift instead. Or maybe you're not sure if you have any gifts. Go ask a trusted brother or sister and say, hey, what do you see in me? Do you see anything that I might be gifted in? Do you see any gifts of the Spirit that I might have that I'm not seeing? Because a lot of times we have blind spots, or we can't see potentials that other people can see in us. So expect confirmation from the body. These gifts are to be used to build each other up. So ask each other. Ask for accountability. Ask for insight into the ways the Spirit may have gifted you. Maybe a person will say, hey, let's explore the possibilities together. Let's dive in this together, and we can tell each other what we think, if we see that in each other or not. Okay, so that's steps 1 through 5. And again, these aren't necessarily perfectly in order, but you might have to start over again with re-exploring. You might have to re-examine your heart. But I think this is a helpful process for us to begin discovering our gifts and how we can use them for Christ. So, bottom line for this morning, the bottom line, is discover the gifts that have been given to you and use them. Discover the gifts that have been given to you and use them. The first way you can do this is by examining your relationship with the Lord. Examining your relationship with the Lord. First off, do you have one? Do you know Jesus as your Lord and Savior? Have you committed your life to Him? Have you signed on to His team and said, Jesus, I want you to be my King. I want you to be the Lord of my life. Because again, these gifts are gifts for believers. So if you aren't a believer, you're likely not going to see any giftings in these spiritual gifts. So examine your relationship with the Lord. Are you fully submitted to Christ? Have you fully surrendered your life to Him? Maybe there's something getting in the way of that. Maybe there's something in your life that you're filling yourself up with more than the Spirit or than focusing on the Lord. Examine yourself. Second is by exploring the different ways you can use your gifts. Again, take the questionnaire. We have some in the back, or you can find it online and print off some more if there aren't any there. Good start of beginning to examine and discover what gifts you might have. Check out the ministry fair. Again, next Sunday after church, we're going to have a bunch of tables set up there, a bunch of ministries. Go walk around, explore, see what your options are for serving here, or think about ways that you could serve in a new way or start a new ministry. Set up an appointment with me. I'd love to discover with you and explore with you what your giftings might be and where you can use them. And then finally, by serving eagerly and cheerfully with an eternal focus. By serving eagerly and cheerfully with an eternal focus. So ultimately, we're here on this earth for one purpose, right? To glorify God by being witnesses of what He's done in our lives so that others might know Him too. So are you focused on serving eagerly? Are you serving cheerfully? Are you serving with an eternal focus? Are you focused on heaven and winning others to Christ and in building up the body so that the body can be more effective for Christ? Use your gifts to build up the body and to spread the gospel. So this morning we talked about discovering your gifts. 5-step process. Step 1, examine your heart. Make sure that you are right before the Lord. Make sure you're fully submitted to Him. Step 2, explore the possibilities. Step 3, experiment with as many gifts as you can. Step 4, evaluate your feelings and effectiveness. And then step 5, expect confirmation from the body. So we talked about V.N. Parthaban with his 145 degrees. He did step 2 pretty well, right? He explored the possibilities. All right, so here's a guy named Dave Herman. This guy, about 10 years ago or so, he tried to work 100 different jobs in 1 year. 100 different jobs in a year. Can you imagine that? Anywhere from being a street musician, a delivery truck guy, a truck driver, a bartender, a Subway sandwich artist. I mean, he tried the gamut. He did odd jobs here and there, and he did it. He did the 100 jobs. The tricky thing was he had to actually live off of this income. It's not like he was super rich and doing it just for fun. He had to live off of it too. So that was kind of the hardest part for him. His 100th job was being the New Year's Eve correspondent when the ball dropped on New Year's Eve in New York. So when it comes to discovering your gifts, do you want to be a V.N. Parthaban with his 145 degrees or Dave Herman with his 100 jobs? Well, I would say both and neither. Right? You probably don't want to entirely be either one of these and just only focus on studying or only be switching out jobs. Yes, exploring your options like Mr. Parthaban is good, but don't let it stop there. Don't just stop at exploring them and studying them. And yes, experimenting with your gifts like our guy Dave is good. Experiment with different job possibilities, but don't stop with just trying different ones either. Find 1 or 2 or 3 that you really feel like are your stronger gifts and grow in them. And seek to be used more in those gift areas as you serve the body. And again, at the end of the day, what matters most is your heart. What matters most is your heart, being fully submitted to Christ and eager to use your gifts for His glory alone. So let's pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you for giving us the Holy Spirit to empower us to serve you, to empower us to build up the body, to empower us to share the gospel. Lord, that's why we're here. I pray that you would help each one of us as we seek to grow in our walks with you, as we seek to be more submitted to you, Lord. Help us to lay aside anything getting in the way, any stumbling blocks, anything drawing our attention away from our purpose of living for you. Lord, I pray that you would help us with that. Help us as we discover our gifts, give us wisdom and guidance. And Lord, it's all for your glory. And so we pray that you would be glorified and honored and not us. Because we can't do anything without you anyway. We need you, Lord. We need your Spirit. And so we entrust ourselves to you, and we thank you again for this time. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Grab a questionnaire on your way out, or if there aren't any left, you can print them off online through our website or Google it. Have a good day.